Hello, and welcome to Resolve, an afterplay show. This would be an after show for a role-playing game that does not have an actual play, where I would tell you the details of our game so you don't have to listen to it, but we didn't have a session this week. Hi, I'm Sammie. I'll be your host. My pronouns are she, her, and we are joined today by my wonderful co-host, Alex.
Hi, I'm Alex. I use he, him pronouns.
We are also joined today by special guest and playlister, Zach.
Hi, I'm Zach. I use he, him pronouns, and I'll be showing you the playlist for Tao, who uses they, them.
All right, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Zach, why don't you give us a little bit of a rundown into the, overarching themes of your playlist?
So, Tao is a Vocaloid, basically. So, almost all of this playlist is Vocaloid songs. A lot of things from the series that inspired Tao, and a lot of just other generally, Vocaloid songs that I like, but also kind of keeping with a theme of kind of going through Tao's progression from when they were born to basically the start of the campaign and the phases of their life that they've already gone through. Kind of what I was going through and organizing this playlist by. So it loosely tells the story of Tao's life.
We should probably also publish this translation resource that you've given us with lots of links to the full songs, because this is almost exclusively Japanese lyrics. So if you don't know Japanese, maybe you would like to see the translated lyrics and follow along with us.
Right. Some of these other playlist episodes, we've had Spotify playlists to share. For this one, I made a YouTube playlist because that's really the best place to get a lot of these Vocaloid and other non-English songs. A lot of them just aren't on Spotify. And in that YouTube playlist, I tried to find versions of the songs that people had subtitled with English as well. That will hopefully be easy to follow along with.
Overall, so there's a lot of themes that are inherent in Tao's sort of backstory. So I'd like to take a moment and just warn everybody up front that some of these songs get into some dark subject matter. Definitely mentions of suicide and self-harm are in a couple of these songs, and we'll bring it up again once we get to those. So, but just as a general warning, this one may not be everyone's vibe, so if you're triggered by that, please go ahead and feel free to check out.
Also in response to bullying, in case that's something that's a trigger for you as well.
Yeah. Alright, so let's do the deep dive into this playlist. What's our first song, Zach?
Our first song is Fire Emblem by Daoko and Shadarapar. This song was performed by Daoko, who is a Japanese singer from Tokyo, who first started getting popular uploading videos to Nico Nico Douga, which is a Japanese YouTube, basically, in 2012 when she was 15. And this was in collaboration with Shadarapar, a Japanese hip-hop group that debuted in 1990.
Ooh. that's some hit legacy there.
If you remember the Japanese commercial for The Legend of Zelda Link to the Past?
Yes! Let's go!
Link dancing around to hip-hop, that was Shadarapar.
Oh, I need to watch that again.
Keeping these people on payroll. Jeez.
So yeah, this collaboration was for the Fire Emblem event in Nintendo's mobile game Dragalia Lost, which is a lot of layers to that, but yeah, basically Tokyo Mirage Sessions Sharp FE, which is the Fire Emblem crossover with Shin Megami, was one of the inspirations for Tau. That includes Tiki being a Vocaloid dragon. Tiki, the dragon from many other Fire Emblem games, shows up as a Vocaloid in Tokyo Mirage Sessions. And that also has the concept of Performa, which I've talked about as Tau being that energy of the connection between performer and audience during a performance. I really wanted to get some Fire Emblem representation in this playlist, and I felt like this was a great pick. And it's about starting off on an adventure, basically. The lyrics start off saying, hey, new kid, come and help us. In that, rap breakdown in the clip we shared, and then sings, Fire Emblem, come on, there's a whole new world to explore now. So it really felt like a good way to kick this off with Tau first coming onto the scene, coming into awareness, and getting right into, creating music, learning about the world, all that jazz.
Yeah, the big notes I wrote down on my untitled notepad are uplifting and hopeful. I kind of like the bouncy vibe of this. It does fit what you said, like the start of a story, the start of an adventure. Everyone's excited to get going.
I also like this as introducing Tau to a game where they're about to be world traveling, because there are explicit lyrics about that in the song, but also because Fire Emblem Heroes is a game about a collaboration between the Fire Emblem worlds and traveling kind of between those worlds. So you're right. Bridging the gap between your inspiration from Fire Emblem and taking this character into world travel.
Right. Yeah, I guess that's also kind of in this song, because that was the concept for the crossover between Fire Emblem Heroes, which is already a crossover game, and Dragalia Lost was traveling between worlds.
Yep.
So many crossovers.
So many.
Collaborations on collaborations.
For the generations.
Literally, with Dowco and this band from the 90s. That also did a Zelda commercial.
I'm gonna go watch that when we're done.
It's so good.
I am curious, though, just because I love metaphysical nonsense. Does Tau remember the start of their existence? How did they feel about that?
I mean, yeah, I think Tau, being digital isn't really as prone to losing information as most organic beings. So yeah, they would probably remember first coming into existence and just like, this is as far back as my memory goes. I don't think they have any particular feelings except, maybe a bit of nostalgia. All right, next up we have Nobody Makes Sense by Pinocchio P with vocals by Hatsune Miku. 'As I said, this song is by Pinocchio P, using Hatsune Miku. And this is kind of where we get into a weird sticking point for comparing this to other playlist episodes you might have listened to already on this feed. A lot of these artists are, at least starting out, putting their stuff online. They have a bit of anonymity. I don't know Pinocchio P's real name or real demographic info that much, but I can tell you that they are a quite popular and prolific Vocaloid artist going back to 2009. Of course, vocals by Hatsune Miku. If you don't know Hatsune Miku, she is the most popular virtual singing program that people can use to write songs using digital voices.
Is taking all of my willpower not to just be like, oh, Miku, every time one of her songs pops up.
I always think of Justin McElroy's "It Is I, Hatsune Miku."
Creator of Minecraft, Hatsune Miku.
Yeah, so this song, you put in your notes that, like, it's about a relationship of understanding humans, especially being a new creation, being, in essence, a copy of a human without the human experiences.
Right. The lyrics that we clipped say cats are usually called Tama for no particular reason. Dogs are usually called Pochi for no particular reason, which is like the Japanese equivalent of saying people call their cats Fluffy and their dogs Spot for no reason. Tao is seeing humans as kind of this strange entity. They do things that don't necessarily make sense. And yeah, here in the chorus, it says, "For what are we living? For what are we trying so hard? There might be nothing to it. It might be all useless. In 1,000 years, there won't be anything. But I still hope I could keep smiling with you because nobody makes sense." So it's, in essence, saying people don't make sense, but that's fine. And Tao kind of likes them in spite of that and kind of likes them because they don't make sense. Because they're kind of irrational beings.
Since this will probably be before Tao's second playbook change, somewhere on the later end of things, we can talk a little bit about what's been going on with Tao. And this song really makes me think about what Tao's world eventually is, protecting those moments of pure creativity, because those are almost nonsensical from the perspective that Tao is given here, but they're protecting them. This really feels like the seed of that impulse to protect those moments and eventually not just create an all-encompassing paradise.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what I was thinking of. Tao really enjoys the creative, the nonsensical side of humans and wants to protect that.
One of my notes that I wrote down was there's a commentary on the institutional structure of everything. It's like, yeah, we call cats Tama, but like, why? What does Tao feel about the nonsensical structure? And we've talked about this a little bit in campaign episodes. Why are these institutional values important, and what should I incorporate into the world that I create?
I think it's kind of exemplified in another part of the song where it says, like, we only step on the white parts of the crosswalk. It's like, that's kind of a fun little childish thing to do, and it's something that kind of embodies like the innocence that Tao sees in people that they want to protect. And there's a lot of this stuff that just comes down to the culture of people, what they see other people doing, and I think that's really important to Tao.
Does Tao feel separate from people in a way that's unapproachable, or are they really glomming on to these different things because they want to become closer to humanity?
I think at this point where this is in the playlist, where this is in Tao's timeline, this is kind of where, yeah, humanity does feel like this unapproachable other thing that Tao is just fascinated with, but doesn't feel like they are a part of. As we go further on, see, Tao becoming more a part of society rather than just this observer. Our next song is The Lost Ones Weeping by Neru, covered by Akatine. So, as you may have heard, this one is not really a Vocaloid song. It was originally written by Neru, who is another very popular Vocaloid producer. But this is a cover by Akatine, who is, in Japanese, I believe they're called utaite, which is basically just cover artists on YouTube, but there's a whole fandom around them, and he's known for having an extraordinarily wide range, adding screaming to songs, things like that. And this cover is very interesting to me because in the original, that intro section that we just played in that clip was purely instrumental. Akatine decided to add in the screaming at the start on his own, and that really adds a level of emotion to the song that I thought was great, and was also an influence on Tao being a screamo vocaloid, basically. Being into the heavier metal music was this and other covers by Akatine.
Yeah, this was the first track where I was thinking, this reminds me of what I imagine Tao would sing based on what we've talked about in game.
Yes, for sure. That was definitely an inspiration there. Yeah,
and this is a dark song, not only in just like content matter, but musical styling as well. Like the bass line is just real heavy in this version. It's good.
Yeah, it's great. I love this song, especially this cover. And yeah, getting into the content, the lyrics of the song, kind of talking about getting into a little bit of, like we mentioned before, the person having problems at school, being, smart, but not really being able to connect with and understand people. Like the lyrics in the chorus saying, can you read the kanji on the blackboard? Can you read the shape of her heart? Can you understand what you're learning in class? Can you understand other people? And those being kind of not necessarily in conflict, but two very different things that you have to get a handle on going through school.
And what better avatar to make out of that feeling than something based on digital technology? Tao gets to reflect this trouble empathizing with people by their very nature.
Yeah, absolutely.
The thing that sort of strikes out to me is that Hanabi created Tao as an outlet for all these emotions that they're having, right?
Right.
So I think now that Tao is, at this point in the playlist, is starting to understand the pain that Hanabi's been going through. How did they feel about it? How do you rationalize to yourself that you are just a means of output of negative energy?
Yeah, that's really what I was trying to get at putting this song here in the playlist, was Tao realizing that I don't think Tao really takes it personally that, Hanabi only created them to vent, basically, but they are, at this point, coming to understand that they don't really know humans that well after the last song, and then seeing my creator, my best friend, is unhappy, is having these issues, and I don't know how to deal with that, is an important part of Tao's journey here.
This is also one of a couple songs where I see a really close connection with Geyser. This is a lot of the similar circumstances that Geyser has been going through, like taking on all of this negativity, being an avatar for a child in a sense, and then seeing how Tao and Geyser dealt with that differently because Tao has so much more awareness of what's going on, it seems.
Yeah, it feels like Geyser kind of acts more instinctually on that level, whereas Tao is very analytical of saying, like, this is what these people are doing, feeling, this is what needs to be done. And I think this kind of gets into how that analysis kind of lets them down at some points. Right, so our next song is Sacrifice of Sheep by Gakusen P featuring vocals by Gumi. And this is where we should put a bit of a warning. This song deals with heavy themes of bullying and suicide, so if that makes you uncomfortable, feel free to skip to the next song or dip out now. As I said, the song was by Gakusen P, who I was able to find surprisingly little information about. This may be one of the more obscure songs on this playlist because this artist seems to only have made 4 songs. Yeah, I was not able to get a whole lot of information about them. But this is, I believe, the only song on this list using Gumi for vocals.
I don't know how much attention we were supposed to pay to the video. And I know the video is also about like bullying, and we've talked about that up front. But there's also a lot of like crosses, and there's supposed to be like Christian imagery. This idea of a Jesus-like figure becoming a sacrificial lamb for everyone else's sins. And I feel like there's a bit of a savior complex in Tao. Does Hanabi have some of those same feelings? Does Hanabi like want to save people? Is that something that he imbued into Tao, or is that something that Tao has for Hanabi?
I think that is something that Tao really feels for Hanabi. I think especially at this point in their lives, Hanabi was more in need of help, but I think later on, as you know, Hanabi grows, they would be the kind of person that would reach out and help other people that were in situations like them. And yeah, you got into a little bit of the video versus just the song, and that's one of the things I find really interesting about this song is the lyrics taken alone are talking about 2 warring villages, each worshipping their own god, who are, you know, fighting between each other and decide upon a sacrificial lamb, a scapegoat that will take on all the problems and will take the brunt of their god's wrath. But when you watch the video, it's clear that these warring villages are 2 high school cliques. These gods are 2 popular kids in high school, and the sacrificial lamb is the one kid that they decide to both bully. And just that kind of metaphor really works at a pretty strong level, I think.
If this is a song that Hanabi would have written to perform through Tao, how does Tao feel about performing that?
I think it's kind of a mixture of being like upset about the real events, but also if they can provide a kind of catharsis in performing this kind of song, I think they're happy to.
It does make me think a lot about how Tao has grown, because it's not just about appeasing people anymore. As we've been playing along, they have their own wants, and sometimes those wants are to help people, but they have their own things that sometimes supersede other people's wants around them.
Yeah, at some points, Tao is starting to get into not just being a observer, but wanting to interact, wanting to help people here at this point, of their own volition. I found out about an hour ago, as I was researching for this recording, there is a sequel to this song where the bullied kid survives jumping off of the roof at the end and comes back and kills his bullies with a shovel.
Oh,
Oh man.
well,
I hope that's not secretly what was going on with Hanabi when they came back. Like, oh yeah, I'm
Probably not.
put them in the ground.
I'll never tell why I buried them. Well, good for them, I guess.
I guess. Yeah, now we can get into the next song, Just Praying by Neru, with vocals by Wolpus Carter. This was another song written by Neru, who did Lost Ones Weeping, that we talked about before, performed by Wolfus Carter, who is another utaite, like Akatine. But this one was kind of unique in that the Wolfus Carter version, I believe, was released around the same time as the original song, so was sung in coordination with Neru as he was writing this song for the Caligula Effect 2, where this song was in the soundtrack. That's another one of the games that heavily inspired Tau, is the Caligula Effect series. So I felt it was really fitting to put this in.
Yeah, this song is a lot about escapism, which I think is a theme of the series, as you've told me. I've not played the games. So I can definitely see why Tau would be interested in that, and the concept of creating a paradise that people could maybe escape to.
Escapism definitely figures heavily into those games, and kind of heavily into Tau's original motivations for wanting to create a world in general. This song is a lot about wanting to be with someone, wanting to get away from their problems, but not really being able to help them, and thinking that they're looking for a fix for their problems, but that might not be possible. This song in the Caligula Effect is a theme for a character who is disabled, who is in a wheelchair, and the doctor that was unable to heal her is continuously feeling guilty about that. That's kind of where the theming of the song comes from, and kind of the connection I was making to Tau desperately wanting to help Hanabi, but not feeling like they're able to.
I guess for at least my brain, some context, how much is Tau able to interact with the real world outside of their programming at this point?
I think at this point they are able to manifest something of a physical form at this point, but not really have any of the extreme powers that we see later. So they're able to interact and talk, but not much beyond that.
This also makes me think again of what Tau eventually comes up with in their own world of protecting those moments that people feel precious so they can continue existing in their real world. Trying to allow them escapism without being completely lost in it. Creating a paradise for a moment.
Yeah, I definitely like that interpretation playing into Tau and what they end up doing with their world later on. So we can get into our next song, Jailbreak, also by Neru, with vocals by Mafu Mafu.
警告のサイン有名な素因止まらぬエラーランプに顔を色変えずコード上げて君は笑うエンジンがヒットした機体がどうしたって気にもしないほどにトリップしてしまう空は偉大さ二度とどっかに吹き飛んでしまったってこれはこれでもいいんだって思ってる
As I said, that song was sung by Mafu Mafu, that cover of Jailbreak. Mafu Mafu is a Japanese singer who often performs with another singer, Sararu. They both, I believe, first came to prominence doing covers of Vocaloid songs, but have written their own songs as well. And I specifically picked this cover of the song because, again, like Akatine, who I mentioned before, Mafu Mafu adds some things to their songs, like in that clip that we played, that gasp between the phrases just feels perfect in context. The song and the video are about two kids who grow up wanting to escape their city, trying to build a plane, and as they grow, one gives up on trying to escape and ends up joining the police and hunting down the other one who continues building the plane and at the last moment manages to get it working, get it to take off, and fly away. Just that gasp as they finally break free is such a small, subtle touch, but perfect in the moment.
There's something so like childish and innocent about that imagining escaping too. Like I definitely, with my first closeted boyfriend, we had like jokes back and forth about like, yeah, we'll make a moon base and everything will be fine. Like I've had weird ramblings with a significant other like this before.
Yeah, and everybody has that time where they're like, if I could get the fuck out of this city and just move somewhere else, like that, my life would be so different and everything would be better. And one of the things I wrote down is there's a fine line between escapism and compartmentalizing. And I think we are on that fine line with this song.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know I have a lot of Neru songs here right together. Later, I also have some other artists where I have a few of their songs all together, but I feel like that is kind of one of the themes that Neru gets into a lot is escapism, and I felt like these were all appropriate for this part of Tao's journey. But yeah, this kind of building on the escapism of the previous song is getting into even more of let's actually get out of here. Our next song is Cradle by Replica. If you try to look up the artist for this song, you might get a little confused because Replica isn't really a group. This song was the credits song for the Caligula Effect Overdose, the updated re-release of the Caligula Effect game. This group was formed specifically for this song, and the singers are the voice actors for the 4 major female villains of the villain group in the game out of the 7 or so characters in that group. This is very explicitly just a Caligula Effect song. This is explicitly going over the concepts of the game, those characters' motivations. That was, as I said, one of the games that heavily inspired Tao, and this one is talking about the motivations of the villains of that game, which are kind of also Tao's motivations. The song is saying, does it hurt? Are you scared? I've made this cradle for you where you can ignore all the pains of the world and just be safe.
Yeah, that note that you put on this song made me realize that this is where I see a connection between Tao and Terra. They both saw this experiment that was not necessarily great, and they were like, I can replicate it and do it better for a good reason, and something good will come out of it.
Yeah, I had never really thought about that connection to Terra, but I like that. That's great.
There's always the double-edged sword here for particularly the word cradle, because it's like you're a baby and you're safe and you're with your mom or your parent or whatever. But at the same time, it's a big thing in fiction where your mom's a little over encumbering sometimes, and you need to get out on your own. Sometimes being in that protective bubble isn't the greatest of things.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what we saw Tao starting to struggle with in some of the earlier episodes of the campaign, where they were confronted with, hey, maybe just trying to make this perfect place with no problems isn't going to work out the way you think it is.
It's not useful for people. It's not going to help them actually escape those situations. Sometimes you have to confront something to get through it.
Right.
Yeah. And I think especially with Tao's interactions with Lone in the World of Ages, particularly because Lone did the opposite thing, just tried to make the worst, like, just stop everything from
Right.
getting better or changing. It's really good to see that contrast and see where Tao falls in the middle from learning that lesson.
Our next song is Polaris by Liu.
見よロスポラリス午後得る夜をナイフのよでも耐えられるよそうさ僕は一人ロンリーロンリーだけど遠い星君が待つのなら君が待つのなら
Liu, the singer of this song, is a Chinese cosplayer and singer. This song is in Japanese, and it was created for Dragalia Lost again. Getting 2 songs from this completely Tao unrelated game. Because it had a really good soundtrack. This song specifically was written at the song for the character Siren, who was a singing dragon, who just wanted to perform for people, wanted to help people, but people are very cautious of Siren songs. So that was kind of that character's whole conflict. This song specifically is talking about being apart from someone you care about and having Polaris, the North Star, there to guide you back home when your journey's over.
And just thinking about the character being Siren, I was thinking like, oh, we got very part of your world vibes.
Yeah, we got some of those
Yeah.
coming from Tao as well.
Which creates this, like, since I've been talking about the relations to all the different characters, creates this relationship to a Siri, like,
Yeah.
Siren song, being very curious about, like, humanity, trying to figure out your connection to it. And as long as I'm talking about this too, you have 2 Dragalia songs. Smog's list also has Dragalia songs. It's very funny that Smog's first Dragalia song that we've talked about on his playlist was this battle theme, and you've chosen these, like, poppy event anthems.
Yeah, I think that's really, at least at the start of the game, that's kind of a big difference between Tao and Smog, was Smog is more get down and dirty, whereas Tao is more bright and poppy.
I also like Polaris here because Tao does sort of act as a guiding light. They lead by example and they try to do their best to help everyone that they can. There's always a little bit of glimmer of hope within Tao, which I think, going back to the relationship with Asiri's really attracted to.
As you were saying, kind of had some of those part of your world vibes. Kind of also points to a bit of the conflict between Asiri and Tao.
Yeah.
I don't know if this ever came up in the podcast, but part of your world was explicitly kind of an influence on when you were writing about the shallow folk.
Yes.
Which are the mermaids that Asiri does not like quite as much. But they're more the collectors of things. They have more commerce-driven societies, things like that. It's interesting that is a similarity, but also a bit of a point of conflict there. Yeah. Because, yeah, as I put for Tao, this point in Tao's journey is like seeing that they don't think that they can really help Hanabi as they are now, but knowing because of the nature of the world that they come from, if they get more popular, they will have more power and be able to help more. This is kind of Tao venturing out to try to get more powerful in order to be able to come back home and help. Our next song is Rolling Girl by Wawaka, featuring vocals by Hatsune Miku.
「
This song was by Wawaka, who is one of the absolute greats of Vocaloids. I recently found a list of all Vocaloid songs that had gotten 10 million views and above on Nico Nico. There were only about 20 songs, and 4 of them were by Wawaka. Yeah, he was one of the absolute greats. Sadly passed away in 2019, but if you've spent any time listening to Hatsune Miku songs, you've found one of his songs, and Rolling Girl is just an absolute classic. The song that really got me into Vocaloid. Yeah, it's really about rolling along despite failures, despite setbacks, and like the chorus says, just one more time, one more time.
That got me really ruminating on all the negative associations we have with the concept of rolling. Like, you can just eke by existing, like rolling by like a tumbleweed. You can have Sisyphean rolling up a hill. And that one more time made me think of like Gacha. Like, I'm obsessed with keeping doing this over and over again until I get what the fuck I want.
One more roll on the gacha. One more time.
Exactly.
That is a meaning to Rolling Girl that I had not thought of before.
Gotcha pon. Yeah, this is actually one of the songs I do know, which is good because like I love this song. This song slaps, but I think the song is sort of sneaky and like it has that sugar poppy intonation, but it's not. It's such a stressful and anxiety inducing song, and like the more you listen to it, the more stressed out you get.
Yeah, it really is. There are a lot of Wawaka songs like that. World's End Dance Hall is another one where it's, you know, happy and poppy, but then it's really about, oh, the world is ending and we can't do anything about it, so we're just going to dance.
The piano ostinato in this song is just so sharp and it keeps repeating on such a short clip. It's just like, ugh, it just drives home the stress.
Yeah, this is really where we start getting into the less directly chronological section of the playlist, but this is kind of the Tao's downfall section of this is all of the issues that Tao is struggling with as they're going off on their own, as they're trying to get more popular. And one of them is just trying to become popular for its own sake doesn't work that well, and you're going to fail with that a lot.
And I think just attracting any modicum of celebrity or fame, it's just failure after failure if you ever strike it big at some point. Like, it's such a roll of the dice, if we weren't. So I can imagine with what Tao wants to do, that's incredibly frustrating.
There's also this idea of like monotony of trying the same things over and over again. Was getting trapped in Sequence Charter and traveling the world, finding this other group of people, was that the thing that Tao needed to break out of this cycle? Could something else have helped?
So I think by the time we started, Tao wasn't necessarily as much in the cycle as they had been, you know, at this point in their past. But I think that it definitely was something that helped them kind of break out, meet new people, get new ideas, perform for wider audiences, and incorporate their songs as well. Things like that. Our next song is Bizarre Food by Utsup, featuring vocals by Hatsune Miku. So, Utsup is lately been my favorite Vocaloid producer. He is kind of known for being the metal producer for being able to make Hatsune Miku scream like no one else. He's been making music since 2008, just put out a new album last year. Heavy metal Vocaloid is not a combination a lot of people think of, but it's really what he's known for.
I have a question.
Yes.
A lot of these artists have had P in their name, and you've also incorporated that into Hanabi's online name. Does that mean anything?
So the P stands for producer.
Okay.
As a Vocaloid producer, it's kind of a thing where people who make Vocaloid songs will have a name that ends in a P. Some of them will go by multiple names. So I believe Neru, we had a bunch of songs by him earlier, also has a P name that is just less commonly used. But yeah, it stands for producer. Utsupi, I believe, literally translates to depression producer. The song specifically is about basically just being seen as something to consume, something pretty to look at for a moment, and as nothing more. And I think especially as a Vocaloid, a piece of software, Tao starts getting into those feelings of, why don't these people see me as a person as they're trying to perform for a wider audience.
It reminds me a lot of Demi Lovato's Eat Me that I know that you shared
Yes.
with the group. At some point, I actually put that in Smog's most recent playlist because of friction he was having within the party about being changed, about changing his own personality.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very funny that for very different reasons, Smog and Tao have this in common.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that thing of saying, I am more than just what you see of me, the presentation, the face I'm putting on, and you need to accept that.
It must be very jarring because, a Vocaloid is a program that you use to make songs. So in some essence, Tao has been created to be used by people. It must be really hard to juxtapose the wanting and being powered by that fame and performance energy, and then to be just on a core level be used and manipulated by that energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's something where when Tao was basically just making music with Hanabi, it felt very personal. And even if Hanabi was like, this is a program, he was still saying, this is a program that I've made, that I've poured my heart into, that I have such a connection to. And then going out to a wider audience, there isn't that connection. And there's really that potential to just be seen as an object. And this is the first of a few Utsupi songs in here that kind of goes along the same track. Like I mentioned before with Neru, some artists just, have that theme and they fill it in certain parts of Tao's lives, and I put a bunch of their songs together on the playlist instead of spacing them out. So our next song is Chimera by Deco27, featuring vocals by Hatsune Miku. 'So this song's by Deco27, who is another one of the Vocaloid greats. Their songs, Bana and Ghost Rule, are extraordinarily popular. They've also gone on to do music production. They had a song in the first Caligula Effect. I was initially sad when they didn't have one in the second game, until I saw that they were the audio producer for Caligula Effect 2. They're also working on, I believe this anime is currently airing as we're recording, called Shangri-La Frontier. This song specifically is about sort of becoming obsessed with social media, obsessed with likes, changing yourself to become someone that is widely loved. And especially after what we were just talking about with the last couple songs of Tao struggling to become popular, this is maybe not something that Tao was extremely struggling with, but something that there was definite potential for them to fall into. That's kind of this section of the playlist is Tao's downfalls, Tao's weak points, and them just really wanting to be popular, wanting to be loved by the public, and being willing to change themselves for that, I think is a very interesting angle on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like the theme of identity crisis that is sort of inherent. Like, you're the pieces of all these things sewn together to be the most popular, beautiful version of yourself, but at the same time, it's not really you. And, like, of course, we all know that no celebrity is really who they put out when they're giving an interview on the big screen, recording a song, etc., etc. But my question is, at this point for this song in time, like in the timeline, would Hanabi recognize Tao anymore?
I think this might be around the point where Hanabi starts realizing that Tao has really grown beyond him. And I think, I wouldn't say Hanabi wouldn't recognize Tao, but Hanabi would recognize that Tao is more than just what he created at this point. Tao has taken on a life of their own.
I had a slightly different question. Is there any part of Hanabi that identifies with the message of this song? Has Hanabi been adapting to bullying by pretending to be different things, presenting to try to be more popular, hiding himself? Does he seek escape in the popularity that Tao has, being his own creation?
Yeah, I think there definitely would be a part of Hanabi that would resonate with those ideas, that would have been trying to change themselves to be more popular, to be less bullied. And so that's... I hadn't really thought about that, but that's a really interesting insight there, yeah.
I'm trying to set up for our next song a little bit.
I forget, were we recording talking about the Chimera earlier, just being stitched together in Angry?
Yes.
Because this song is specifically called Chimera, about being stitched together from people's perceptions of you, stitching yourself together into something that will be desired.
Yeah, that's something I talked about in a series playlist, because there's another song that had Chimera mentioned in it as well.
That's it. Yes.
Yeah.
I was listening to that earlier with you two talking about it.
I meant to mention that because that's a part I overheard you listening to. It's like, oh, yeah, so yeah, that's our playlist.
And our next song is Not Photogenic by Utsup, vocals by Saira. 'So we've talked about Utsup. Saira is another Japanese singer. I wasn't able to get much information about her, but I did see that she has put out her own voice bank for Utao, which is a digital vocal software not officially produced by, Vocaloid Company. That voice bank is called Seura, Seura, I believe. But this song, like the Neru song earlier, Just Praying, was initially produced with Saira by Utsup, and this version with an actual singer came out at the same time as the Hatsune Miku version. The song is about constantly being watched, constantly performing for people. There's a line in the clip that we just played that says, "A flame that couldn't become the sun and went bad is meaninglessly squandering oxygen. from the first moment of awareness until the grave, because someone's standing watch, I have to look photogenic. And that, I felt, just really resonated with Tao being constantly in the spotlight, constantly performing, constantly trying to get big or else feel like a failure, and resenting that at some point.
This made me think of two memes.
Oh, good.
Beautiful. So yeah, it reminds me a lot of the Two Cakes comic, where somebody's like, "Oh, my cake's so shitty," and then whoever's eating is like, "Oh yeah, two cakes." Like, you don't. It's clear that artists perceive this need to be highly functioning and wonderful all the time. There's even the line in there that says, like, "Don't tell me I don't have to be this," but it's really true. You can bake what you want, and somebody will appreciate it. It's just a matter of scale that we're worried about here.
Yes,
right.
Absolutely.
Also, kill the part of you that cringes. Do not kill whatever you think is cringe about you.
Yes.
Right. Yes.
Burrow that into your soul. If you take any lesson from this episode, burrow that into your soul.
Absolutely. These last couple songs of Tao needing to put on a pretty face to appease people are not aspirational.
No, not at all. I really like the vocalist for this song.
Yeah.
The pitch slides on their extended like growls, so good.
So perfect. Yes, I love those. That's honestly part of why I chose this song at all. Not to mention this specific version, but yeah, it's so great.
Very talented. But you're right, being a public figure is exhausting. It's a lot of work. And especially for Tao, who can be downloaded and infinitely used on like so many computers, on so many systems all over, it's kind of mind-boggling how they might experience that fatigue, because it's like maybe you're constantly in use at any given point in time because somebody's up at like 2 a.m. putting the final tweaks on something, and then now you're being played over here on YouTube or whatever the equivalent is, and so on and so forth, but you're still performing all this time.
Yeah, it's exhausting for Tao, I think, at this point in the timeline. They're just having to be on all the time.
I actually have this as a note in the next song, but this string of songs reminds me a little bit about Pony. Pony was forced to be a show horse. This is a point of connection I definitely see with the two of them, not wanting to be known this way, but wanting to be known.
Right. Yeah, I can definitely see that connection. Next up, we have Hyper Reality Show by Utsupi, our final Utsupi song, with vocals by Hatsune Miku. 'We've already talked about Utsupi. I will say this song was included mostly for just one line that I've noted here. It says, "Whose will is behind the song I'm singing, you ask?" It's Hatsune Miku, of course, which in the reality of the world of Utsupi creating this song using Hatsune Miku is about, even in this performance, I can put on this face of anonymity of Hatsune Miku, and that's all you need to see. That's all you need to know. That's the performance I'm putting on for you now. But in Tao's world, it's saying, no, this is actually me, the virtual singer, having my will of my own, trying to express something to you, not just the real person putting the song together. And I just really love that juxtaposition. The song in general is about human nature of just constantly putting on a face, performing for everyone in different ways. And I think at this point in this journey, after the previous song, about burning out from constantly performing. This is kind of Tao realizing that everything is a performance. Everyone...
It's all drag.
Yeah, it's all drag. Everyone's putting on a face of some kind at some point, and kind of accepting that in a way.
I do find it's a little on the nose to have a synthetic voice speak about the artificial natures of humanity when in itself is artificing humanity.
I mean, that's the whole point. It's so good.
Yeah, human socialization is kind of like a circus. There's always like triple innuendo and hidden meetings and backtalk and whatever. So I can understand Tao's frustration.
Yeah, this is kind of getting to the peak of that. I guess coming down from the peak of that frustration and getting to, like, this isn't something to be frustrated about. This is just the world. And you can still do something real despite having to put on a face every aspect of your life.
Right. This is also a song where I felt another connection with Geyser, because Geyser has to be the clown all the time and gets to discover, like, oh, I don't have to always prod people and get what I need for them. I can actually be my own person. I don't need to be a constant artifice.
Yeah.
Even though that's what you were created as.
So what you're saying is Tao is the glue that holds the party together.
I think it's just because the other playlist episodes are so much earlier. I'm already firing on these connections with the characters, and we're so late in the game. It's hard not to feel like, this is why these characters come together, and these are similarities.
Right. There's definitely been those kind of connections between everyone's arcs. And now we get into our final song of the playlist, Zero by Pinocchio P, featuring Hatsune Miku. 'This song kind of comes full circle with Nobody Makes Sense, our second song of this playlist, where that song was about not understanding people, not understanding the weird things people do, but thinking that it is good that they do them anyways. This is more about understanding that people are flawed, people make mistakes, people are imperfect, and loving them anyways. And I think that's really what Tao comes around to after all of this struggle, is people can cause a lot of harm, people can mess up, but they're still great, they're still worth saving. And I just love that this song just ends on, I have nothing keeping me busy, so I want to see you again tomorrow. And I think that's really, that's very Tao, is like, we've been through a lot, but it's all been good. Let's do it again.
Yeah, I love how you've layered this playlist, like, overall, since we're at the final song here. It's just, we get from the poppy introduction, and then we go into, like, the dark gloomy and upsetness, and then we get into, like, the inner turmoil, and we go from, like, the sugar sweet pop to the metal to the, like, screamo, and then we're back to the sugar sweet pop. It's such a organic flow of these things, and it really suits Tao because they are just a mix of all of these things.
Yeah, I'm glad you like it. I definitely put a lot of thought into all of that ordering, not just in the timeline, but in a listening through it sense. And I really felt like this was the best conclusion song for Tao for where they're at by the time we get to the start of the campaign.
Yeah, it feels complete.
It works well for coming back to zero. Like, you're at a place where you're beginning and you can go any which direction. You're able to meet someone there. You said you've been coming full circle. That all works very well with the concept of zero as origin. And also against the idea of amassing fame that we've just been working through. Like, oh, you want me to get all these numbers of likes and whatever from these previous songs? Well, no, I'm just going to live at zero.
Right. Yeah, there is also that aspect. And also the song talks a lot about reaching zero as kind of letting your guard down, letting that fake face you're putting on fall away, and just being real with people, just having fun with people, just enjoying people for what they are. And I just really like that.
Alright, let's get into the resolution phase, the segment of the show where Zach gets to tell us about his thoughts about his playlist for Tau, with no responses from us.
Listening back through this, I honestly really feel like I need to branch out a bit more into Vocaloid music. I do love all of these songs, but there are so many repeated artists, I would love to be able to branch out more. And I've already started putting together what's probably just going to be a little playlist for myself based on what may be happening to Tau soon. If you want a sneak peek at that, listen to The Disappearance of Hatsune Miku. Find me on Blue Sky at Zach Defend.
And where can we find you, Alex?
You can find me on Blue Sky at Shining Crowbat. This time I'm going to recommend Lil Gator Game. It is an action-adventure game, borrows a lot from Breath of the Wild, but is much easier and I think kind of child-friendly. It's about a kid who is an alligator running around a little island, playing like a make-pretend adventure game that other people are helping them set up, and also interacting with other people's imaginary play while their sister is doing like... Remind me, Zach, is it like game design homework or is it like work?
I think it's like programming homework or something. She's on her laptop doing college group projects that no one else is carrying their weight in and whatnot.
Something related to programming, and I think she mentions video games as something. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's very cute, pretty short, and fun.
And for myself, you can find me in the haunted cone of a gramophone, just spiraling away, listening to those chilling tunes. This has been Resolve, an Afterplay show. You can find us online at most social media sites at ResolveAP.
Except Instagram, which is at Resolve Afterplay.
Thank you everyone for joining us today. You can buy the game we're playing, Interstitial, Our Hearts Intertwined, from its creator Riley Hopkins at linksmithgames.com.
All links will be included in the episode description.
Thank you again for listening. We end our turn here, so now it's your turn. Tell us about a playlist for your characters.